Welcome to Mom on Purpose, where it's all about helping moms overcome challenges and live their best lives. My hope is by being here, you're more inspired to become the mom you were made to be. I'm Natalie, your host, a wife, boy mom, dog mama, Chicagoan, and former lawyer turned professionally certified coach. If you're here to grow, I can help. Let's go. Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome to the Mom on Purpose podcast. So happy to be here with you today talking about mindset tips for type A moms. Oh my goodness, this topic has been requested by so many of you. And today I'm going to read in one specific email that I think kind of covers a lot of the requests that I've been getting. If you would like to make a request for an episode on the podcast, or you have a question for me, make sure you are on my email list. You can head on over to momonpurpose.com/subscribe, because in most of the marketing emails that I send, there will be a PS at the bottom inviting you to reply. And I get those replies sent to me from my team so that I can reply to you, take a look at them, help you with what you're going through, and also choose some to offer to you here on the podcast for a broader audience, particularly when there are a bunch that come in around a specific topic. And for those of you who are feeling brave and bold and up for it, we do have a podcast hotline. And this is really the most direct way for you to get your question answered by me right away on the podcast. You can give me a call, leave a message at 8333-ASK-NAT. That's 833-327-5628. All right, let's dive in to the question today. Hi, Natalie. I recently heard you talk about your journey from being a type A, ambitious, career-driven woman to slowing down and embracing a more soft, feminine approach to motherhood. I really resonate with your story because I too identify as a high achiever and feel like I'm constantly juggling my career and motherhood. But honestly, I'm struggling with slowing down and letting go of control. How did you make that shift? What mindset tips can you share for someone who, like me, finds it hard to embrace calm and balance without feeling like I am falling behind? Thank you so much for everything you do. All right, my friend, thank you so much for asking this question. I know that so many people listening can relate to this, and I too had a similar feeling and mindset and journey that I want to share with you before I even dive into any of the tools. I would say for most of my life, I identified as high achieving, type A, and when I got, older into my 20s, alpha female. And this really stemmed from how I was raised and what other people told me about myself, including my family and my teachers, and, later on my coworkers and colleagues, and also that birth order that our family of origin really falls into, which is first, second, and third child. Me being the firstborn girl, all of those traits that we kind of stereotype with firstborn girls, I identify with. So by the time I was into my 30s, I had really become someone who was career focused. I was already practicing as an attorney, and then as a certified financial planner, and then building my own business as a coach and paying off all my student loans. And I knew the approach to my career, the approach to the work that I did in the world was really helpful for getting results. Because if you want to go achieve something and you really know how to get into that masculine energy, which is productive and organized and disciplined and motivated, those character traits and skills are really helpful. And I learned how to increase my capacity in those areas and thrive. And that meant that I knew how to set and achieve big goals, go after what I wanted. And it really did not have anything to do with intelligence. I say that because I had to work really, really hard, for example, to pass the bar. That was something that took a lot from me, and I'm just so proud of, because for those of you who thrive taking standardized tests, I am in awe of you. That is not me. And so to be able to really just do well achieve my dreams. I always wanted to be a lawyer, be career driven, and accomplish so much. I really did do that. At the same time, I realized that the approach I was taking to my career wasn't necessarily the best approach in the family life, personal life, dating life sphere. And this is obviously before I became a mom. I realized this, that even just with dating and eventually getting married, that those skills, those character traits, kind of being in my masculine, wasn't the most useful for me, particularly as a woman who likes masculine men, who wants to identify as feminine, who really wanted to bring kind of that yin and yang to my relationship, which obviously is heterosexual. So I really started learning about femininity and slowing down and mindfulness and kind of just how to expand my skills and my character's traits. So I don't ever think of this shift in my life as going from someone who, was so driven and motivated, career focused and ambitious to someone who only embraces softness and slowness. I think of it more as like an expansion instead of an either or. Like either I'm one way or the other way. Now I have the capacity for both. And that is one thing that often comes up with my type A clients who are a little bit apprehensive of slowing down and resting and embracing kind of the benefits of femininity and that side of the coin, because the fear is, okay, well, what's going to happen to my life? What's going to happen to my career? What's going to happen to kind of that winning strategy that does work so well on the other side of the coin? And I want to assure you that it really is an expansion of yourself and of your capacity. It is not something that you either are one way or the other. That's really scarcity thinking. Either you can be really feminine or you can be really masculine, and that's it. Instead, I think of it like a spectrum or a dial. You're either turning up the dial or turning down the dial. Or if you think of a spectrum, on one end of the spectrum, you're in your masculine, and on the other end, you're in your feminine, and you can shift back and forth between the two. Prior to doing any of this work, I was just on one end of the spectrum. I didn't have the capacity yet to go to the other end of the spectrum. And I didn't believe it was possible for me. So if you don't believe it is possible for you to slow down and be calm, and you have all the reasons why, you grew up in a family of yellers, you've always been type A, you're the firstborn daughter, you thrive in your career, whatever the reasons are for why you think you can't embrace slowness and femininity and calm and relax, those are the reasons that are stopping you right now. But I promise you, they're not true. They're just limiting beliefs that you have about yourself. And I say this with such confidence because I remember vividly thinking, no, this is just who I am. I just am type A. I just am an alpha female. I just am career driven. I just am high achieving. And what I didn't realize at that time was I was reaffirming my identity. I didn't know that I could change my identity. And again, it's not that I wanted to get rid of the part of me that was high achieving, but I wanted to expand my identity so that it wasn't turned up all of the time, because I realized that in my relationships, that wasn't serving me. And it would serve me a lot better to add in playfulness and calm and femininity and slowness. And so I embarked on this journey, my friends, and it is one of my most proud journeys because I do have that capacity now. I do have the dial that I can turn up in the feminine or turn down when I want to be more in my masculine, particularly with respect to work and content creation and launching new products for you and all of that. But when I am with my family and when I am with my kiddos and when I am with my husband, so much more softness and flow and femininity is turned up on that dial for me, and the benefits are amazing. I don't get as triggered. I don't think things need to be perfect. I am much more able to navigate tantrums and hard moments. The imperfections don't bother me in the house. I can let the laundry sit. All of kind of the day-to-day things that might have bothered me when I was in my masculine don't anymore, because I just have my mom hat on. I have my wife hat on. I have my homemaker hat on. So it's such a beautiful gift that you can give to yourself, that I have given to myself. And I really, really want to encourage you that you can go on this journey. So that's a little bit about my story. And I would love now to talk with you about how I created that, how I did that, how I went on that transformation, and also how you can too. So I think mindset and identity have to be the starting point. At least that is what was the starting point for me. And I think it's what made me so successful in this, because I realized that just by telling myself I'm always going to be this way, I am type A, I have to be the alpha female, I didn't even see it was possible for me to shift into more feminine, easygoing, and laid back. So when you are starting with changing your identity, look at the way you talk about yourself. How do you identify? Even if you just shifted it to, I'm a type A mom who's becoming more calm, you can add in some qualifiers that make it really believable for you. So this is really about starting with awareness, simply becoming aware of your current identity and your current mindset. So pay attention to your thoughts. When you feel stressed, or when you feel overwhelmed, or when you feel stuck or triggered, that is a cue for you to go inward and ask yourself, what am I thinking? What is the story in my mind? That story is your mindset. And it doesn't mean you're wrong for thinking it. It just means that's what's creating all of the negative emotion. And so what you want to do is become aware of the story in your mind. Write it down just so you can get it onto paper and get it out of your head, so that you really can see, oh, these are my thoughts. I am not my thoughts. These are the sentences in my mind that are creating my experience. And then you can also play around with the thoughts. There's a class inside the Mom on Purpose membership that is a top member favorite called Cognitive Distortions. And I teach you how to look at your thoughts and look at your mindset and kind of pinpoint any cognitive distortions. So you're looking at where you're catastrophizing or where you're taking things personally, things like that. And that's what you want to start to do when you write down your mindset, is look at the impact of that mindset on your life. So if you have a mindset, I can't fall behind, then you are constantly going to be trying to outrun yourself. I never tell myself I'm falling behind. I quickly just redirect my brain to, there's no such thing as falling behind. Behind and ahead aren't things. They're things that we make up in our minds. So for the person who wrote in, who said it's really hard to embrace calm and balance without feeling like I'm behind, take a minute and think about if that thought is helpful. What if there's no such thing as being ahead or being behind? There are just a bunch of things, and you get to decide when and to what extent you're going to do them. So for example, if the laundry is piling up, instead of thinking, if I take a break right now or if I rest, I'm going to be falling behind. Alternatively, you can say, there will always be more laundry. The laundry can wait. I'm giving myself what I need right now by resting, and that is important. Just that shift in mindset will create a completely different experience for you. I think too about the impact this has on our families. Like, just think about kids. When they grow up, they don't say, you know what, my mom always had the laundry done. That made her such an amazing mom. If you always have the laundry done, but you are always stressed, you know what they remember? My mom was always stressed. Now, if you're quote unquote behind on the laundry, or the laundry's piling up, but you feel rested and connected, you know what your kids remember? My mom took care of herself. She rested and she was so connected and present with us. Kids, remember how you make them feel. They're not going to remember the laundry. So that's another selling point. I think the next part of this is challenging your thoughts. Challenging your thoughts and noticing how they're not helpful. Even if a thought is true, if it's unhelpful, you can focus on and find another better feeling true thought, because there are lots of thoughts that are true at the exact same time. For example, let's say it's been a really busy day and all of a sudden you realize that there's nothing planned for dinner and it's 5 o'clock and your brain has that thought, there's nothing planned for dinner. Well, that's a true thought, but it is a thought. It's your interpretation of the facts. But there are also lots of other true thoughts. So even though that's your default thought, it's kind of rooted in scarcity. And so what you can do is just shift that thought to a better feeling thought that is also true. For example, you might think something like, there are so many options for dinner tonight. We can have leftovers. We can have cereal. We can go out to eat. It can be everyone on your own tonight. When you shift to a thought that you also believe is true, you will feel so much better than just going off of what your default thoughts are. And this is really because of the survival brain. So your survival brain is wired to scan for danger. It's wired to keep you alive. That's what it's about. That's why it's called the survival brain. It's the default mindset. So on default, your primitive brain is always scanning for danger to protect you, to ensure your survival. Most of the time, 9.9 times out of 10, if you're listening to this podcast, you are someone who lives in a relatively safe environment and world. And so what that means for your survival brain is that your brain doesn't need to scan for a lion coming down the mountain to make sure that you run and are safe. Instead, your brain is scanning for danger in your home, and the only danger it finds is something quote unquote negative. This means it's pointing out to you what your spouse is doing quote unquote wrong, or what your kids aren't doing, or the laundry that you haven't done. And because of that default wiring, you will feel stressed, overwhelmed, just more negative on default. So I constantly remind myself, my brain is wired for survival. It's wired for the negative. That means it's not wired for happiness. And that means it's my job to rewire it, to feel good, to feel calm, to feel happy. Just because something is your first thought doesn't mean it's truer than another thought. In fact, thoughts are equally weighted. So notice that your first thought is most likely coming from that primitive negative part of your brain. Don't give it extra weight just because it was the first thought. This comes up a lot when people ask me about gaslighting and mindset. And they say, well, you don't want to gaslight yourself. And I say, well, of course not. You want to believe a new true thought to you. But the first thought that you have, it might be true or it might not be. But regardless of that, it's probably coming from your primitive brain, which means it's probably going to be negative, and it's still a thought. The validity of that thought isn't greater because it was first. So you can intentionally create better feeling thoughts from your prefrontal brain that create calm and patience and happiness and any of the feelings that you want to feel. But it is a practice, my friend. I love using mantras and journal prompts and journaling methods and just, running thought models and repeating the mantras that I practice in my everyday life. And I don't do them all every day, but I mix it all up. And inside the Mom on Purpose membership, every single week you get a set of new mantras and a set of new journal prompts. There is also a journaling course that helps you navigate challenges and live into becoming the woman and mom that you want to be. And a huge part of my shift was changing my identity, changing the way I thought about myself, embracing this new identity for myself, this calm mom, this mom who has, this ambitious side, and this mom who is patient and connected and grounded and playful and fun. and seeing that come to fruition for myself and genuinely not feeling like I have to do and go, and genuinely being okay with the laundry just sitting there is one of my greatest accomplishments. I want to talk a little bit about kind of why journaling works and why writing works and how you can apply that to changing your mindset. And then I also want to dive into some of the common mistakes that I see come up a lot with doing mindset work, particularly for type A moms. So first, let's talk about journaling. This is always a question I get for those members who say, I don't know if journaling is for me. I don't really like journaling. And I say, that's fine. If you don't want to journal, you don't have to journal. And also, if you don't have the results you want in your life, if it was me, I'm willing to try some journaling. So just notice, if you're saying you don't want to journal, but you also don't have the results that you want in your life, then it's okay if you don't like it. I would still suggest doing it. It's kind of like you didn't go to school and just tell your teacher, well, I don't really like writing, so I'm not going to be writing anything in this class. That is just not how the world works. And you wrote anyways in class and you didn't even think about whether you liked it or not. So I think sometimes when we're doing personal development work, we want it to feel so good in the process that we question everything. And I want you to just think about, what do you want as the result? Do you want to become more grounded and calm and patient and easygoing? And is it worth it for you to write some things down, even if you don't like it, to get that result? For me, of course, the answer is yes. And I am someone who enjoys writing. Of course, I have little ones right now, so much going on, and that is in the best way. But I find time to journal. I leave my notepad, my journal, and a pen on my nightstand, and I do it first thing in the morning. I don't do it every day, but I do it a lot, and it makes such a difference because it helps my brain focus on what I want to focus on. Instead of that default brain focusing on the to-do list or what's in front of me, my brain is focused on what I wrote about that morning. So I absolutely love it. When you write things down, especially by hand, so I'm not talking about typing here, it engages both sides of your brain, the logical left side and the creative right side. And this actually helps promote clarity, focus, and it helps you be a better problem solver. Because on default, that brain likes to spin in drama and the problem. But when you're writing, you will be much more likely to focus on solutions. Writing really helps you organize your thoughts, and it makes them less overwhelming because, as I heard someone once say, thoughts are slippery. So you have one thought and then another thought pops in and then you get a notification on your phone. And then before you know it, you're thinking about the grocery list and you don't even know what you were supposed to be thinking about with your mindset and you're off to the next thing. That doesn't happen with writing. So it's a way for you to focus and really create the clarity that you're looking for. What I love so much about journaling is that it activates your brain's prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for the rational thinking and the decision making. And this can help calm down that emotional part of the brain. This means you're going to experience less stress, less anxiety, and it really allows you to put the unhelpful emotions in the back seat so that you are in the driver's seat because you are writing intentionally. And the way I teach you how to journal is not just, okay, write whatever's on your mind, because if you do that, you will probably write about your default mindset and the negative and all the things that are stressing you out. But what I teach you how to do is to look at your thoughts critically and decide on purpose what you want to think. I also teach you how to become that next version of yourself through identity statements, through becoming her journaling. We have a fantastic journaling course inside the membership that shows you how to do exactly this. A lot of my clients and members of the membership will ask me, like, how do you practice this work? When you say practice it, what do you actually mean? Can you just repeat the thoughts in your mind? And yes, you can. But I always say, look at your results. If you don't have the results that you want yet, write down the mindset and the feelings and the actions that you want to think, feel, and do to create the results that you want. Because journaling helps reinforce new beliefs and new thought patterns and new feelings. Joe Dispenza calls this creating future memories. So on default, your brain remembers what it's done in the past. But if you start writing about what you want for your future, your brain can remember, oh yeah, I wrote about this future that I'm creating. And so it genuinely starts to remember what you want to create in the future. And that is how you can become this next version of yourself. And really how I did it in my own life was in large part through journaling and through saying to myself, I am calm, I am soft, I am feminine. And that led to me feeling softer and more grounded and slower. And then realizing the sky isn't falling, my business and clients are still taken care of. And in fact, this is having such a positive impact on my relationships, on my marriage, on my kids, that momentum kept me going. Again, such a gift to give to yourself. I'm so glad that I went through this journey. 10 out of 10 recommend it if you are thinking about it. Common mistakes that I see come up, particularly for type A moms who I work with, are some mindset traps like perfectionism, thinking that you have to have everything done all of the time for everyone always. And this leads to a state of constant overwhelm and stress and frustration. It really keeps you in a cycle of never good enough, and it will lead to burnout. Instead of planning self-care and taking breaks and feeling rejuvenated, you will need an escape from your life. It really prevents you from enjoying the moment. As cliche as that sounds, it's so true. It will be a lot harder for you to connect with your kids and your family if you are constantly scanning for more that you need to do. So I like to remind myself, it's not my job to do everything for everyone always. I like to also remind myself of the mantra, I don't need to earn my rest, or rest is productive. A second mistake that I see a lot that I think is a mindset trap is comparison. Oh my goodness, my friends. If you are comparing yourself to other moms in your neighborhood, in Facebook groups or on social media when you're scrolling, it is such a disservice to yourself. Because first of all, as we all know, that's the highlight reel. Everyone has a personal life and a private life, and everyone has a primitive brain. So everyone has different challenges. But even still, even if someone is having the success or the ease that you want, using that against yourself creates disconnection from yourself. It will rob you of your joy and your peace and your delight. And that is available to you right in front of you. So for example, you could be playing with your kids, laughing with them, having fun just out in your backyard. But if you're thinking, oh, well, I just saw so-and-so, she just took her kids on this huge, Disney vacation, and you're using that against yourself and thinking you're not a good enough mom, and you're stuck in the comparison trap, you miss out on that opportunity just to have fun in the backyard with your kids. So what I teach with respect to comparison is to stay in your own lane. Remind yourself that your life isn't supposed to look like her life. And if there's something that you're noticing about her life that you genuinely want, that can be helpful so you can access your desires. And that goes back to your mindset about whether and to what extent you believe in your capacity to create your desires. So for example, if you see, that mom take her kids to Disney and you check in with yourself and you think, oh my gosh, genuinely, I do want to take my kids to Disney. That's useful. That's useful for you to know what your desires are. But then if you immediately squash that desire with, but I'll never be able to, or, but we can't go this year, or whatever it is, you dim that desire. You have a limiting belief. And that is mindset, my friends. Even if you can't go today, you can still believe it's possible for you in the future. You might believe something like, I don't know when, but we're going to Disney at some point. That shift in your mindset shifts your entire energy. So just notice, again, it's all about awareness when your brain goes to the comparison trap. The next common mistake, mindset trap, that I see a lot with respect to type A moms is overthinking. And it's not just overthinking, it's overthinking negative thoughts. Because if you're overthinking positive thoughts, wouldn't be a problem, right? You would be filled with lots of joy. But overthinking negative thoughts, overanalyzing decisions, beating yourself up, second guessing yourself, worrying excessively. I think this happens particularly with type A moms because we are so good at analyzing. So it's one of your strengths, maybe in the workplace. So when I think about being an attorney, if I am really detail oriented and good at analyzing something, that's awesome if I'm reading a contract. Not awesome when I am thinking about my kids or my life, because it's that same strength, but it's overused. So your strengths overused become your weaknesses. I once heard someone say that, and it's so true. And that is a lot of overthinking. Again, awareness of your negative thoughts is the way out of overthinking. It's not that you stop the negative thoughts, but you question them. You see that they're just thoughts, you replace them with better feeling thoughts. And you have your own back. So for me, if it's a decision I wouldn't make, I can still validate myself and say something to myself like, you know what? I wouldn't remake that decision, but I love the version of me who made that decision. And I love me now. And it's all okay. I learned something from it. Do you see how that is true and grounded in so much self-compassion and self-love? So much more helpful. Okay, another mistake with respect to mindset that comes up a lot for type A mamas is all or nothing thinking. It's believing either I have to do it perfectly, or I have to do it all, or I've failed, right? It's like, it's either or. It's all or nothing. It's black or white. And this often leads to feeling like you're failing as a mom, giving up, not doing more. You actually do less this way and you beat yourself up again. And I think it also promotes this unrealistic idea of life and of motherhood. And we all love to say like, I want to have it all, or I do have it all. Why aren't I happier, right? Like, what does that even mean? And so just notice if your brain is thinking, I have to do everything or I failed. Because really that is all or nothing thinking that is not helpful. So I like to embrace a mantra like something is better than nothing. I may have not made a gourmet meal for my family, but I got out a pre-made frozen dinner from Trader Joe's, warmed it up on the stove, and everyone's fed. That still counts. There is always going to be someone who is doing more. And if you use that against yourself, you will be in the comparison trap and you will be in all or nothing thinking. What I'm doing right now is good enough. Repeat that to yourself, because if you're constantly trying to outrun yourself in order to be good enough, in order to earn your rest, it is exhausting. Please don't do this. Take a break, take a rest. Believe that you are worthy of that and you don't have to earn it. Okay, the last mistake that I see come up that I think is a big mindset trap is people pleasing. I've been doing so much coaching on this inside the membership. It's crazy because I think a lot of times we don't realize it's people pleasing when it is. So people pleasing is when you sacrifice your own needs or wants or desires in an effort to make others happy, i.e., in an effort to manipulate them. I like to use that word because I don't think any of us intentionally want to manipulate someone. And yet that is what we're doing when we are not being honest with them, when we're saying yes to something when really internally it's a no. This leads to so much resentment and disconnection. So for example, if your mother-in-law asks you to bring the family over this weekend and you already have a bunch of things planned, but you don't want her feelings to be hurt. You don't want to deal with the aftermath of what she'll think, feel, or do if you say no. So you say yes, even though you don't want to go at all. This is people pleasing. It's neglecting what you want in an effort to control and manipulate someone else. Now, this doesn't mean you don't do things that you never want to do. You can actually do the same action from a place of genuinely wanting to give. So you might say to yourself, like, you know what? My first choice isn't to go over to mother-in-law's, but I want to be someone who goes and sees her family with my kids on the weekends. And so I'm going to change my plans and we're going to go because that's who I want to be. That is very different than going because you think you should go or you have to go, or in order to be a good daughter-in-law, you're supposed to go. Do you see the difference there? The motivation behind the action is everything, and that comes from your mindset. If you are constantly thinking that you have to perform a certain way and take care of everyone else's needs in order to be seen as good, that is people pleasing. It leads to resentment and exhaustion. It's inauthentic. It's really hard to be connected in your relationships and to yourself when you're people pleasing. So remind yourself, I like the mantra, my needs matter too. And it's my job to take care of my needs. All right, as we wrap up, I want to go over some of the mindset tips for type A moms that I've talked about throughout this episode, just to kind of give you a quick breakdown to make sure that you have something to take away from this episode. Number one is to start with awareness. What am I thinking about myself? What am I thinking about my kids? What am I thinking about my spouse? What am I thinking about my family? What am I thinking about my home? What am I thinking about my life? Number two, write down these thoughts. Write them down because journaling is powerful. It allows you to use your prefrontal brain to decide what you want to think. And on default, your brain is wired to look for the negative. It's not wired for happiness. So you can rewire it through journaling. When you write down the thoughts that you have about your life, about your family, about yourself, then you can challenge your thoughts. And that is number three. Challenge your thoughts. Question them. Be curious about them. Are they serving you? If they're not serving you, you want to choose better feeling thoughts. And that's number four. Better feeling thoughts will help you change your mindset so that in a very real and practical way, you're enjoying your life. You're not feeling so overwhelmed. You're embracing the calm, but you're still able to have that part of you that is career driven and focused and, motivated and high achieving. It can be both. You can have both. I promise you. Number five is to avoid the common mistakes that I see so many of my clients and type A moms fall into. Those are perfectionism, comparison trap, overthinking, all or nothing thinking, and people pleasing. And finally, number six, use mantras to remind yourself of who you want to be throughout the day. I sprinkled many mantras throughout this podcast episode, but I just want to remind you of some here. It's not my job to do everything for everyone always. I don't need to be perfect. I'm a human mom, not a robot mom. Balance is something I feel internally, not something I get externally. The laundry can wait. I deserve to rest. I don't need to earn my rest. I'm becoming more laid back and calm every day. Come up with your own mantras that feel really good to you. I promise you, my friends, that there is nothing that has been more powerful to my own transformation, shifting from more type A to having the feminine in my capacity than doing mindset work. I love that now what I can do is put on my mom hat and be playful and grounded and connected and happy and joyful. And I can also still access the part of me that is high achieving and type A. It's not that I transitioned from X to Y. It's that I transitioned from X to adding Y, and now it's XY. Do you see that? It's really an expansion, not one or the other. And that is the most abundant way for you to shift your identity and become exactly who you want to be. Expand what you believe is possible for yourself by changing your mindset, and you will very practically in your everyday life see that expansion in your home, in your family, in your work, in everything that you do. All right, my beautiful friends, I will talk with you next week. Take care. Thank you for being here and listening. Now head on over to momonpurpose.com/coaching to learn more about the Mom on Purpose membership, where we take all of this work to the next level.